children have a hard time knowing when they're allowed to run riot, scream and jump up and down, etc. It's hard to know how these rules work, and there's different methods that parents use on children. Now, we've all been there, and the reason I'm talking about this is because it's given you an insight into the way you act now and behave now. Parents will often frighten the child. That's the standard technique. And a parent who doesn't want to go overboard and scold the child and risk some sort of alienation by the child will often resort to fairy tales and mythology, the bogeyman's when they get you. And that's so that induces a sort of fear into the child about certain things, going to bed, what's in the closet, all that's under the bed, this kind of stuff. And it's done often with good intent with the parent who is not really conscious of the reasons why they're doing it, but they're trying to teach them the social rules. And children can become hostile when they're told not to be spontaneous, and that's where the trouble all starts, because everything in this world, this system, I should say, really, is about control. Who controls who? When a child is taught to give up the feelings which they feel, they're first taught to give up the expression of the feeling they feel, the behavior, the expression, and eventually it's suppressed enough that the actual feeling itself goes, the spontaneity goes. Children are taught from a very early age not to show their hostility or their dislike of certain people. This, again, is a social indoctrination. The parents want them to be social in the same culture, albeit artificial, that they've been raised in and born into. They pass it on to the child. A child, when they don't like someone, they will show it very easily. They're going by instinct. They can't verbalize why, generally. They have a feeling about someone, and the parent doesn't want them to suddenly just turn their back to a visitor or whomever. So natural traits, survival mechanisms even, are taught to be repressed, and eventually they fade away with the mechanism itself. They can feel hostility or the insincerity in someone. It radiates from them. Animals feel it too. Dogs sense it. It's a survival mechanism. So this discouragement of the reaction the child has the parents come down on it. They want the child to be mature, which is really the social acceptable way of behaving. And the child then loses their ability to discern between someone who's deceitful or downright nasty or evil. They grew up into adults, and they are easily manipulated from then on. The school system takes over, of course, even more so than today than before, with its social group techniques of indoctrination. So yes, the children grow up and lose their ability to discern what is real, to deny their own instincts and eventually lose those instincts, and they're socially manageable and malleable by the controllers. There's another side to this, because children are indoctrinated with feelings that they didn't create, because they're taught then to like people and not to be critical and always to smile and be polite towards people. Again, the cultural part, the culture coming from the top. This eventually comes in through schooling and then on past schooling and is reinforced by the social and peer pressures around them, the cultural pressures. And yet when you look at all of the advertisements on television and in radio, with all the actors acting, selling you everything that's going to just make you so astoundingly happy, from toothpaste, nail varnish, treadmill machines, to whatever it happens to be, you're being sold lies. And we sit and watch hundreds of lies every week, and no one in this cultural system thinks that's odd. They all complain about all the ads, but the basic reasons behind the ads, the fact that you're being lied to consistently, doesn't seem to bother them, because they don't think that far. They've been taught that this is all acceptable because of the economic system we're in. It's acceptable to be lied to from childhood right into adulthood until you die. Now, an alien from outer space would look at all of this and say they're all under incredible mind control, and that is true. You have to be outside to look in and see it as it really is. Back in, the Fortune magazine, of September 1940. This is what they said about this. They understood. This is only a trickling of what was understood. What education may not have accomplished is usually done by social pressure in later life. If you do not smile, you are judged lacking in a pleasing personality. And you need to have a pleasing personality if you want to sell your services, whether as a waitress, a salesman, or a physician. Only those at the bottom of the social pyramid, who sell nothing but their physical labor, and those at the very top do not need to be particularly pleasing or pleasant. Friendliness, cheerfulness, and everything that a smile is supposed to express become automatic responses which one turns on and off like an electric switch. Everyone has had the experience of going through the checkout counter at a store or a grocery store, and generally it's young girls who work there, and they have this automatic saying of "have a nice day, have a nice day. How are we today, sir?" And these are socially induced phrases from the top, and the little bit of training they get, it's pathetic training for the pathetic jobs. They're told to say these things to the customers. So their behavior, their natural human behavior is suppressed. I'm sure none of them would be there if they had any other option, doing this monotonous work. And I very much doubt they remember many of their customers until they've been through that checkout 100 times. And if you didn't give them the appropriate, trained response that the public have, we're trained to give appropriate responses. No matter how miserable we feel, we're supposed to keep the stiff upper lip and say, well, oh, fine, everything's fine. And your heart can be breaking. Everything else in your life might be breaking. But this is the nonsense that we're taught is acceptable in this society that we're being brought up in and forced to accept. It's a scientific form of Darwinian socialism we live under. Socialism is not to help the people at the bottom, the working class. Socialism is a bureaucratic form and a scientific form of controlling the people at the bottom. Everything in this world is deceptive because the system was designed. It didn't just evolve happenstance with band-aids here and there and superglue. It was designed this way, and it's never allowed to run away from those who control the system. Some of the worst indoctrinations we have is not from mainstream national news. That's bad enough. It's from your local television stations with their communitarianism. Everything's communal, and charity drives and little events as they try to get you used to being involved in a community, a habitat area. You see, this is what all that's about. And then they have the police on with a PR spokesman, a police spokesman. Now, when you get a spokesman for a paramilitary organization, the spokesman is trained never to tell the exact truth to the public. They want to get an idea over so that you will perceive something in the way they want you to perceive it, not in the way you might naturally perceive it if you had access to all information. And you're being trained that that's the authority, and they're part of your community. And there's no doubt we need in this system, because it's guaranteed to have such tremendous fallout, you need police forces. They should be called services. Now everything is force. You'll notice that. Everything is force. May the force be with you, eh? So everything that's put across to you is for a purpose. You can't escape it if you go into the realm of which you think really is private enterprise, private business. But these television stations are all going by a formula. They're all granted licenses. You'll find at the top of them all, you're going to find Freemasonry under one of its many, many, many names at the top, and everyone at the top in it. And that's how things are managed. They know in Freemasonry because you obey orders without question. That's what you're told. And someone in this system, working for this system, gets on by joining one of these societies, swearing their oaths of allegiance to them, promising never to reveal their secrets to the general public, and at the same time they pretend they're charitable organizations for a fantastic front. It's hard to attack mum's apple pie. But they get on and they get up the ladder, as they say it themselves, Jacob's ladder. You see the degrees, the rungs are the degrees. They get up there by knowing not what to say, what not to ask. When they're told something, they don't ask why. That's a good boy, you see, in their club. That's what a good boy is. You don't ask why. That's why you can have plausible deniability, even amongst politicians. They work it out so carefully. Remember, most of them are lawyers in politics. It's their job to play with words and definitions and being very careful of what you say or do. And you delegate things to other people. Then you get someone else to tell them to look into a certain area. And then when it's discovered, you don't take the heat for it. You can plausibly deny it. Technically, you didn't know. And they get up there by not asking questions.